school support staff. I want to begin today by thanking each and every one of them. They help children to learn, keep them safe, support children with additional learning needs and allow teachers to teach. They build strong relationships with children and young people, which are crucial for their well-being so that they can learn and reach their potential. School support staff are now the majority of the school workforce in Wales. Our schools simply couldn't function without them. They are quite simply the glue that holds our schools together. But in-work poverty is now a reality for many support staff. Most school support staff are only paid for work during term time, which makes up 9 months of the year, whereas teachers have the same term time working pattern but receive a full year's salary. A UNISON survey of more than 1,400 school support staff found that low pay is endemic, with 8% taking home less than £1,000 a month, 18% taking home between £1,000 and £1,199, and 38% taking home between £1,200 and £1,399. The survey also found that more than half are in single-income households. More than 90% of support staff are women, so this is also an equality issue. That's why, as Cabinet Secretary for Education, I committed to legislating for a school support staff negotiating body for Wales, to provide a dedicated forum to negotiate pay, conditions, career progression, training and workforce development specifically for support staff working in schools in Wales. That's why it was a key commitment in the Welsh Government Education Strategic Workforce Plan I published in March this year. And it's why the Welsh Labour Manifesto committed to ending term time only pay as the body's first priority. Dipro Llewydd, I am proud of our record of social partnership in government. Through the school's social partnership forum I chaired, I worked with trade union partners and local authorities to reach agreement that all Level 1 teaching assistants who want to would move to Level 2 from September this year, and I allocated £4 million of funding to local authorities to pay for it. That move will benefit up to 3,350 current Level 1 TAs who will receive a pay rise of up to £1,350. A vital first step towards the goal of fairer paying conditions for all teaching assistants and an investment in our children and young people, especially those with additional learning needs. But we need to go further. If we don't want to see head teachers like one in my constituency who has started a school food bank just so our much valued teaching assistants can get by on what they earn. If we don't want to see support staff being forced to take better paid and less stressful jobs in places like Aldi or Lidl. And if we don't want schools and local authorities to spend millions of pounds on supply staff to replace the support staff they've lost. Now, I wish with all my heart I could have taken primary legislation through the Senedd to make a school support staff negotiating body a reality in Wales. I was proud to speak at the launch of UNISON Cymru's Time to Value support staff report in December last year to support their calls for a school support staff negotiating body and to tell them and other stakeholders that we had put a bill manager in place to work on the legislation. From memory, the new Cabinet Minister for Education and Welsh Language was in attendance at that event. The preparation had begun. Now we want the new Plaid Cymru government to commit to bringing forward legislation to create a school support staff negotiating body and to commit, as we did in our manifesto, to ending term time only pay for school support staff. Our calls are supported by the Welsh trade union movement, including UNISON Cymru and the GMB. But valuing school support staff is not just the right thing to do for the staff. It's the right thing to do for our schools, our communities and every learner in Wales.
Sarah Evans.
Diolch
I will need to declare an interest for this debate as my son has been accepted onto a teaching assistant training course from September. I welcome the opportunity to talk about this highly important topic today. School support staff are crucial to how our schools function and are overlooked far too often, especially ALN support staff, as the member mentioned. I have seen firsthand the invaluable work that ALN support staff do on a daily basis to help children like mine, and it is vital that they in turn get the support they deserve. Plaid Cymru has long been on the side of those in the education sector, with the recent pay uplift for the lowest paid teaching assistants only being possible as a result of our deal with the previous Welsh Labour government on the 26-27 budget. Pay is, of course, important to supporting staff and is necessary to address, but we need to set this in the current confines of the budget. To achieve our aims, it is vital that we have a government that will stand up for Wales and fight for a fairer funding formula, with local authorities having the responsibility for setting pay for support staff. Ensuring that Wales receives its fair share is crucial to give support staff the funding they deserve. However, this is not simply a matter of increasing pay. Teaching support staff are facing increasing workload and are dealing with a range of complex issues, including safeguarding issues, on a daily basis and therefore more stress. I welcome Plaid Cymru's commitment to supporting and working in partnership with our education workforce, ensuring that teaching as a whole is a respective, attractive and rewarding career. This topic needs to receive the care and consideration it deserves, and the government must consider a range of avenues to supporting this crucial workforce. Diolch.
Shaf Taj.
I'd like to declare an interest as the former General Secretary of TC Cymru. I spent many years with the workers that we are talking about, actually putting that campaign together. And what it always came down to is, have we got the money? We got to a position where the money was there and there were a lot of things that we could have done. And then, of course, we are now in a position where at a UK level, we do have the single negotiating body. Here in Wales, we are clearly going to be left behind if we're not careful. That is my real, genuine concern. And everything that has just been said and other contributions as well, yes, they are correct. This is about workloads, but ultimately this is about pay inequality, because 9 in 10 of these individuals are actually women. So just like we are seeing in the dispute with midwives, or whether, in terms of the health visitors, again, it's women. So when do we get to a point where we say that we are going to deal with the situation that's in front of us? Because if we can find money for childcare, we should be able to find money for these individuals, and we shouldn't have to wait for the perfect formula here, because the work has already been done. And the single staff negotiating body will not only address the pay inequality issue, but it will have the official structure where people can come in, bring the various different bits of research, etc. But ultimately, this is about collective bargaining for those workers. We're talking about cooks, we're talking about cleaners, we're talking about admin staff, we're talking about the teaching assistants, lots of different individuals who, as we say, look after our children, the unsung heroes, the many individuals that we clapped during COVID and we said that we were going to give them something different after. So honestly, my plea to the government at this moment in time is, please, let's move on and let's get this done. Let's not just dilly and dally and try and figure out what the perfect structure is going to look like. The unions are very clear. The work has been done. Like Lynn said, the previous government, this was the issue, honestly, that was popular on the doorstep. In the same way that childcare was popular on the doorstep, this issue was really popular on the doorstep. There are going to be more winners than losers if we go ahead and make this happen as quickly as possible.
Diolch. Helen Jenner.
Diolch, Llywydd. Reform recognises the importance of school support staff in the delivery of education and fostering a better future for our young people here in Wales. However, the creation of yet another quango is not the answer. We in Reform want to see quangos brought in-house save taxpayers' money and reduce the tax burden on Welsh people. We don't want to see new ones created. While we have sympathy for the proposals for year-round pay for school support staff, there will of course be financial implications to implementing that policy, and we would not like to see more money diverted from our schools. Thank you.
Hugh Thomas.
Diolch, Dirprwy Lywydd, ac wrth...
Thank you, Dirprwy Lywydd, and I speak to support the motion, and in doing so I'd like to declare an interest as a member of UNISON Cymru and the GMB, the two unions representing and campaigning for support staff in our schools. I won't rehearse the powerful arguments that have been made by my colleagues in favour of this motion, but as a former leader of a local authority, as a school governor, as an acting school governor, and as a parent, I would like to recognise and thank all of the support staff within our schools working across Wales for the crucially important work that they do. I also want to emphasise how the posts that we define as school support roles have evolved in recent years.
By UNISON, confirmed how since COVID, the role of teaching assistants in particular has changed hugely, with the role becoming more complex and a whole new range of skills required. A rise in anxiety amongst pupils has led to learning support assistants undertaking bespoke work with individual pupils. With demand rising for ALN services, academic research has found that teaching assistants helped pupils with learning difficulties make substantial gains in literacy. And there are international studies showing that support staff often play a pivotal but overlooked part of the school system, extending teachers' capacity and sustaining classroom quality. The Education Endowment Foundation captures the case for change well when they concluded that, and I quote, with investment in planning and professional development, TAs reported higher morale, teachers valued the additional capacity, and pupils benefited from more independent learning. TAs are, of course, one component of the school support workforce. Caretakers, another component. In every part of Wales now, we have newly built, gleaming school buildings constructed as part of the last Labour government's 21st Century School programme, providing world-class educational facilities. And I know that schools and councils desperately want these facilities to be available and accessible to the wider community beyond school hours. But too often achieving this relies on the goodwill of school caretakers going above and beyond their roles. And let's not also forget our school cleaners, very much at the front line in keeping our schools hygienic and safe during the pandemic, but sometimes, increasingly so in recent years as school budgets are squeezed, schools are often choosing to outsource to cleaning companies without the protections and security that local authority contracts offer. As we've heard, many of our school support staff experience in-work poverty, and they face the worst of both worlds, having to take their vacations during expensive peak seasons, but they're not paid during the time they're on holiday. And finally, as Shav was saying, it's important to highlight a staggering 90.8% of this workforce is made up of women. The working conditions of our school support staff is therefore a gender equality issue. I would just make clear, this is not a quango we are talking about establishing. It's a negotiating body for collective negotiations. It's a totally different thing. I just want to make that clear on the record. Deputy Presiding Officer, this motion, building on a commitment in Welsh Labour's recent manifesto, and indeed on the tradition of social partnership that has been established by my party under devolution here in Wales, this motion seeks to address a long-standing unfairness. It supports the lowest paid staff in our school, and it looks to ensure that those whom we trust with our children's welfare to support their learning in school, that they are treated with respect and dignity and are paid properly for their work. I urge the Senedd to vote for it today. Diolch yn fawr.
Sam Rowlands.
Thank you, Deputy Presiding Officer. And I too must declare an interest as an LEA governor of a school in North Wales. School staff are so important to our education system here in Wales. Teaching assistants, catering staff, cleaners, caretakers and administrative workers keep our schools running every single day. They're essential to the learning environment, even if their contribution is not always visible in the same way as classroom teaching. Yet for too long, their pay, conditions and recognition have not reflected their importance. We've already heard, haven't we, how many are employed on term time only contracts, meaning they're effectively paid for around 9 months of the year rather than 12, which creates financial insecurity in work that is almost already the lowest paid in the public sector, and it's felt most sharply by those who have the least flexibility to absorb it. There's also inconsistency built into the current system. Pay and conditions can vary from one local authority to another quite significantly, even for staff doing very much the same roles. That means recognition and reward for their work depends too heavily on where they happen to be employed rather than the value of what they do. But Deputy Presiding Officer, we have to be honest about how we got here. This is not a new problem. It's been developed over 27 years of Labour in government here in Wales, propped up by Plaid Cymru, during which these structural issues on education workforce were allowed to persist. Staff have been left in a system that's fragmented, under pressure, and increasingly reliant on goodwill rather than proper structure. It's therefore not credible for those same parties to now present themselves as discovering these problems for the first time or to claim ownership of the solution only once they are no longer solely responsible for fixing it. We also know the system is under pressure. Workforce data shows that the number of learning support workers has declined in recent years. Schools are reporting growing strain on staffing and increasing reliance on support staff to fill gaps where teachers are absent. That is not a sustainable position for any education system. It is in this context that the proposal for a statutory school support staff negotiating body does become important. The principle is to bring structure where there's been fragmentation and consistency where there's been variation. Where a workforce as large and vital as this one, there should be a proper mechanism for negotiating pay and conditions rather than leaving it for uneven local arrangements. This is about fairness, but it's also about stability. Schools function best when staff feel valued, secure and properly supported. When support staff face insecurity in pay and limited progression, it affects retention, morale and ultimately the quality of support available to pupils in the classroom. We agreed that a statutory negotiating body would give school support staff a formal voice, ensure their contribution is properly recognised and help create a more coherent system across Wales. It would also help address long-standing inconsistencies that have built up over time rather than being properly resolved. So while this proposal is being brought forward now, it speaks of problems that have been present for many years. The question is whether we are prepared to fix those structural issues in a meaningful way or whether we continue with a system that's clearly struggled to deliver fairness and consistency for the workforce that our schools and ultimately our children depend on. For those reasons, this proposal deserves serious consideration and support. Diolch yn fawr iawn.
Paul Rock.
Diolch Deputy Llywydd. I'm really happy to support this motion. I'll start by declaring an interest. I am a governor of a local primary school in my constituency and my wife works as a teaching assistant. Most people here will either know someone who works in education or whose family directly benefit from the tireless dedication that support staff like teaching assistants provide. I don't need to remind members of the important work that school support staff do. One-to-one interventions to support children with additional learning needs or children who are simply falling behind. They work with small groups, they cover for teachers and look after whole classes at a time. They run breakfast clubs and after-school clubs. They supervise children at lunchtimes and playtimes. They work unpaid overtime daily, and the pressures of the job mean they cannot always take the breaks they are entitled to. They have to do personal care for children who are not yet potty trained. They are frequently kicked, bitten, spat at, and verbally assaulted. An increasing number of children don't cope well with school, impacting their behaviour and the classroom environment. It's school support staff that intervene to stop the escalation of violence or to resolve unsafe situations. They safeguard the safety and well-being of everyone in the room. The ongoing weight that they carry in their work is enormous, and they carry the ongoing stress with them home and all year round. This is an issue of fairness, safety and well-being, and this is an equalities issue. Support staff are, as Shav told us, most commonly women, more than 90%. With caring and community responsibilities of their own, they're individuals embedded in their communities who rely on them for the work that they do. Unlike support staff in Scotland, they are not paid for the summer holidays or any school holidays, in fact. And whilst the cost of living crisis escalates, they are forced to make difficult compromises around childcare and their household finances, as we've heard. The lack of year-round pay is directly contributing to the gender pay gap in Wales and placing an unfair burden on those we rely on to ensure our children can learn safely. As you can appreciate from my description earlier, the work that support staff undertake is unlike any other local authority staff role. They must have their own pay negotiating body. Wales Green Party believes that support staff deserve to be fully represented in discussions about their pay and their terms of employment so that they can be treated fairly in the crucial work that they do. This is not the first example we've heard this week of where Wales is falling behind another part of the UK. But fortunately, it's a specific issue that the new Welsh Government can take immediate steps to fix. This is the right thing to do.
Phillips.
Diolch yn fawr, Dirprwy Lawydd.
I will have to declare an interest as the chair of governors and also as a close member of my family works as a member of support staff at a school. The UNISON Wales report, Time to Value School Support Staff, sheds light on the situation that support staff face across Wales. From being overworked and underpaid with term time only pay to limited opportunities to train and grow in the role, it's clear that support staff face a range of problems. We know of the challenging situation facing the education system more broadly in Wales, from low PISA scores to absence issues. I'm confident that Plaid Cymru can tackle these challenges. However, there is a need for a holistic approach. We can't help support staff by only tackling issues of pay, crucial as they are. We must also increase recruitment rates and retention rates, expand free school meals to support pupils throughout their school careers, and reduce the workload for all educational staff. These are major issues, and major issues take time to resolve. The government must ensure that it takes the right steps to tackle these matters facing our support staff. Rushing to a decision won't lead to meaningful long-term support that will help with real problems facing staff in the sector. Thank you.
Cabinet.
And I call on the Cabinet Minister for Education and the Welsh Language, Anna Brychan. Thank you very much, Dirprwy Lawydd, and thank you to the former Cabinet Secretary for Education for raising this issue this afternoon. As the current Minister for Education and the Welsh Language, I do welcome the opportunity to respond to this motion, although would kindly suggest that previous opportunities in the past 27 years before this election could have been taken to this end. But I would like to start by recognising the contributions that everyone has made in recognising the value and contribution made by school support staff. TAs, administrative officials, technicians, those who oversee lunchtimes, caretakers, are all roles that have been referred to by many contributors this afternoon. They are the backbone of our schools across Wales, and I do recognise the crucial role of school support staff in Wales and very much appreciate their contribution to our education system as a whole. They are crucial and their contribution is priceless. The report, and many people have referred to this too, the UNISON report, Time to Value School Support Staff, the case for a Wales negotiating body that was published last year, and the former minister is entirely right. I was in the room discussing it on that day. It does make a clear case for change. 2/3 of school support staff, almost 20,000 of the total of almost 30,000 are teaching assistants, and they do provide crucial support for some of our most vulnerable learners. And very often they are the first point of contact for our children and young people, and evidence from UNISON does show that too many of our TAs are inadequately paid and work regularly beyond their pay grades. However, they continue on low wages and on short-term contracts, or term-time contracts only, as many have referred to, and they do face financial insecurity throughout the year because of this, and financial insecurity from one year to the next too. But as some people have already referred to, salary is only one part of the picture.
Heard echoed around the chamber this afternoon are critical to learning and are therefore critical to our ambitions for education. Their roles are flexible and varied and can range from running intervention programmes, catch-up groups, supporting our key literacy and numeracy strategies, break duty, setting up classrooms, pupil assessments, liaising with parents, attending and participating in training, as well as leading on clubs and a wide range of extracurricular activities. I think everybody can agree that is quite an extensive and impressive list. And teaching assistants too are the ones that schools are increasingly relying on to provide support in meeting the often complex healthcare needs of learners, as Paul, I think, alluded to earlier on. But I'm also aware that many teaching assistants, and I've heard this directly too, report little or no opportunity for career progression, despite the increasing expectations placed upon them and their own career aspirations. And for too long, the professional learning and career pathways for teaching assistants have been fragmented and inconsistent. So I can and will say that this government will stand up for teaching assistants. We will ensure that they are properly supported and are fairly remunerated for the important work that they do. And that means a clear career pathway that is tailored, focused and equitable, supported by school leaders and communities with meaningful professional learning opportunities underpinned by professional standards.
And to turn now to the practicality of the motion tabled. It's important to note for clarity that the Welsh Government currently doesn't have the power to set the pay terms and conditions for support staff. This is an issue for local authorities or schools as the employer in this area. And unlike our teachers and school leaders, the salaries and pay and condition for school support staff and TAs are discussed alongside the broader workforce of local authority staff that have various different roles and responsibilities. So, in order to make changes to the current arrangements, the Welsh Government would either need to introduce legislative proposals in line with the motion that we're discussing today, or to work jointly with local authorities and the trade unions in education in order to agree on changes on a non-statutory basis. And I am open to considering all options as part of the next phase of this important work, and I will be watching developments in England in this area with great interest. I can see the benefits of a statutory body which would put arrangements similar to those being put in place in England for our support staff and would give a similar status to them to teachers who are already part of a national review body, but this would take time to establish, and I'm eager to look at what we can do without legislation in order to make a difference more swiftly in the shorter term. And I'm also aware, and I suppose that this is a perfect example of the kind of discussions that we've had on the importance of looking carefully at the budget that we have, and at a time of great pressure on public expenditure, we must consider the fiscal implications in full. And therefore it would be too early, in my view, to agree to introduce legislative proposals within the next year before we as a government publish our legislative programme and before we fully tackle to address the challenging budgetary position that we have inherited. So today we will be abstaining on this motion. We support its intent, but we need to do further scoping work with our social partners, and I agree with the comments made earlier about the importance of continuing to discuss in that way and to decide on the best way forward rather than committing too early to a particular pathway of action without doing that work. Dear Prylywydd, I look forward to working with colleagues across this chamber to support and appreciate our school support staff. It is clear that there is support and an understanding of their work across the chamber, and that is something valuable that we can build upon, and to help them give the best possible experience to our learners, as they already do, of course, but also to provide an attractive career for them as individuals and as a profession too. Thank you.
Diolch.
Thank you. I call on An Eagle to reply to the debate.
Diolch. Can I thank all members for their contributions to this debate, and I'll try in the time that I have available to respond to as many points as I can. Sarah, thank you for your contribution, and I wish your son well with his new role. I do have to say that you're incorrect in the statement that you made about the budget deal. There was no money from the budget deal that went into this funding for a pay rise for support staff. The budget deal was 112 million for local government, and this is separate money. This is separate money. You know, it is separate money. You go and check it. It is separate money. The 112 million went into the rate support grant. The rest of the money was 180 million for health that was agreed as part of the Plaid Cymru budget deal. The £4 million that I provided to local authorities was separate money and is to be protected for that purpose. Now, several members, including the Minister, have made references to the fact that, of course, it's not just about pay for support staff, and I have never suggested it is just about pay. It is about the complexity of what they're dealing with, the issues that Paul Rock referred to, and yes, there is more work to be done in terms of ensuring they have proper career progression. That's why we included that in the Strategic Education Workforce Plan for schools, that commitment to that holistic view of what support staff are doing. But I am detecting a hint in some of the contributions, yours, the Minister, I've heard the First Minister say it in the past, and also Rebecca, that somehow pay is not a really important issue. Well, I say to all of you, go and ask support staff what they want. And support staff want to be paid fairly for the job that they do, which is why we have made this call today. Thank you, Shav and Hugh, for your support. Shav, you know, I know how passionate you are about trade union rights and really appreciate your support. Thank you, Paul, as well. You know, you spoke so eloquently about the range of things that support staff do, and it's all the more powerful based on your experience as a school governor. Sam, thank you for the Welsh Conservative support for the school support staff negotiating body. You won't expect me to agree with the political points you made about 27 years, and the Minister, the Minister also had a little pop there at 27 years. Well, let me say to all of you, 2 years I had in this post, and the Minister herself will discover that it takes time to change things in education. And I set out in my speech very clearly the steps I took with the workforce plan, with the immediate pay rise for school support staff, and the commitment to the school support staff negotiating body. And I note, Minister, that you're keen to look at other options to support staff. Well, again, I say to you, they want all those things, but they also want more pay. And unless you were telling me here today that you're not going to be keeping the strategic education workforce plan for schools, then that commitment is there in black and white to have a school support staff negotiating body. So I think you need to be clear if you're not going to do that, so that we all know it. The term time pay is a different issue because that was part of our manifesto. So if I can just conclude then by taking this opportunity to once again thank every member of our school support staff in Wales. They do undertake that massive range of tasks. They are the glue that hold our schools together, those relationships with children, especially children with additional learning needs. And I hope that we can all agree that we all need to do more to recognise the role of those support staff, but that also means recognising their hard work through fairer pay. And if I can say to Helen Jenner as well, it's not another quango, it is a statutory body responsible for negotiating pay, and we need to have those protections in place for the reasons that Sam Rowland specified. There is variation, and it is not always easy to get local authorities to agree on a consistent basis. That's why it took so long to get the agreement on the level 1 teaching assistants. So the safest way to protect school support staff is to bring forward this legislation. I welcome the fact that you aren't voting against the motion today, and I hope that that is an indication of your willingness to work with me and others in this chamber who are passionate about improving the lives of our support staff and therefore the lives of our children and young people.
Thank you. The proposal is to agree the motion without amendment.